Hey guys, tonight we are not going to talk about what we remember, but what we forget. Settle down, get cozy, perhaps under a favorite blanket, and listen closely. The city outside your window is humming with its usual electric whisper, and maybe you're hearing the soft rain on the roof, or perhaps the quiet tick of a clock. But for just a little while, let's step away from the present and dive into the deep, dark ocean of the past. It's a strange thing, isn't it? This inner world of yours, this grand cathedral of memories. It feels so solid, so real, yet it's built on things you can barely hold on to. Moments that fade, names that slip away, facts that blur around the edges. Tonight, we will journey through that fading. We'll explore why those precious, once vivid memories slowly dissolve like sugar in a cup of tea. If you're not ready to lose a piece of your mind tonight, you might not survive this. Just kidding. But in all seriousness, the brain's greatest trick isn't remembering, it's forgetting. It's a necessary art form. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're so inclined, tell me where you are in the world and what time it is for you right now. I always find it comforting to imagine us all, scattered across the globe, sharing this quiet moment together. Tonight, we begin our exploration in a place that feels both intimately familiar and utterly alien, the very fabric of our personal history. We believe our past is a series of perfect, well-defined moments, a timeline etched in stone. A historian would tell you that history is a series of documents, of artifacts, of things that can be verified and re-examined. But the history that exists inside your head, that is a different kind of document altogether. It is less like a solid monument and more like a woven tapestry, and every time you pull it out to look at it, you tug on a few threads. Sometimes you add a new color, and sometimes you just stretch the entire fabric, distorting the picture just a little. This brings us to a core scientific concept, the paradoxical nature of memory. In neuroscience, there's a principle known as memory reconsolidation. For the longest time, we believed that once a memory was stored in long-term memory, it was stable and fixed. The metaphor was a library book neatly filed away on a shelf. But then a series of fascinating experiments showed us something different. When you retrieve a memory, you don't just pull it out of the shelf. You have to take it to the checkout counter, so to speak. During that process, for a brief window of time, sometimes as short as a few hours, that memory becomes flexible again. It's a little like soft clay. It can be reshaped, and new information can be integrated into it. After this short period, the memory is reconsolidated, or put back on the shelf, often in a slightly altered state. It is no longer exactly the same as it was before. This is a profound and slightly unsettling idea. It means every time you tell a story about your childhood, you are not simply replaying a perfect recording. You are, in a sense, re-editing it. This is why siblings often have wildly different memories of the same family vacation or event. They are not lying. They are simply reconsolidating their memories in different ways, influenced by new experiences, new feelings, and their own unique perspective. The very act of remembering, therefore, is also a subtle act of forgetting. We forget the parts that no longer fit. We forget the details that contradict our current self-image. We forget the boring bits and highlight the dramatic ones. This leads to a rather peculiar scientific fact. The more often you retrieve a memory, the more likely it is to be altered over time. The memory becomes a caricature of its former self, an embellished story you've told so many times that the fictionalized version has replaced the original. This raises a fascinating and perhaps unanswerable philosophical question. If our memories are constantly being rewritten, is the you of today truly the same person as the you of 10 years ago? Or are we just a collection of ever-changing stories we tell ourselves about who we are? This doesn't just apply to our personal lives. We see this on a larger scale with cultural memories and historical narratives. Historical events are remembered differently by different societies, not just through different interpretations, but through a collective, ongoing process of reconsolidation. We collectively forget some details and emphasize others to fit our current understanding of the world. And yet, despite this constant process of reshaping and forgetting, we still feel the weight of our past. There's a certain mystery to this. Why do we feel so tied to a past that is demonstrably not what it once was? It's as if there is a ghost of the original memory that lingers, a subtle feeling or an unspoken truth that no amount of retelling can erase. This suggests that forgetting is not just a failure of the system, a bug in the code. It is an intrinsic feature, a necessary part of the human experience. If our brains held onto every single piece of information, every single sensation, every single idle thought, we would be overwhelmed. Our minds would become a cluttered attic filled with useless junk, and we would lose the ability to find anything truly important. Forgetting, in a very real way, makes room for new things. It allows us to discard the irrelevant so that the important can shine through. So as we begin this journey, let's abandon the idea that forgetting is a weakness. Instead, let's see it as a quiet, powerful force, a force that prunes, reshapes, and polishes the raw material of our lives. It's the invisible hand that curates our existence, deciding what to keep and what to let go. And tonight, we will follow that hand. The ancient philosophers believed that memory was a wax tablet, and experience was the stylus that carved impressions into it. Over time, those impressions would naturally wear away. This simple analogy, while beautiful, doesn't quite capture the messy, dynamic reality of the human brain. Our memories are not static carvings. They are living things, always in flux. The brain is not a passive recipient of information, but an active, tireless editor. It's an editor that is constantly working, even as you sleep, to decide what stays and what goes. A truly remarkable scientific fact demonstrates this active forgetting. Studies have shown that a person who learns a new language and then stops using it for years doesn't just lose the ability to speak it. The brain actively repurposes the neural pathways that were once dedicated to that language. The brain, it seems, is an incredibly efficient manager of resources. If a highway is no longer used, it will be dismantled, and the materials will be used to build a more useful road somewhere else. This is a profound, almost ruthless efficiency. Our brains are not designed to be archives of everything we have ever known. They are designed for survival and for adaptability. They are designed to allow us to navigate the world we are in now, not the world we were in a decade ago. Think about the first time you learned to ride a bicycle. At first, it was a conscious effort. You had to think about where your hands were, where your feet were, how to balance. Every movement was a deliberate decision. But now you don't think about it at all. The process has become an implicit memory, a part of you that operates without conscious thought. But what happened to the memory of all those little moments of struggle, of all the times you fell? Those memories have been pruned away, deemed unnecessary by the brain's internal editor. They have been forgotten so that the skill itself can become second nature. This selective forgetting is what allows us to become masters of a skill, to move beyond the conscious, clumsy act of learning and into the fluid, unconscious grace of mastery. A musician doesn't remember every single note they practiced. They just play. A writer doesn't recall every single word they ever wrote. They just write. The forgotten details are the very foundation upon which skill and expertise are built. They are the scaffolding that is removed once the building is complete. This process of forgetting also brings a certain kind of peace. How would we live if we remembered every single painful moment, every single unkind word, every single mistake? our minds would be a constant storm of regret and pain. But the brain, in its quiet wisdom, has a mechanism for this too. It pushes those memories to the background, dulling their emotional impact over time. It doesn't erase them entirely, but it wraps them in a kind of gentle fog, making them less sharp, less able to cut us. This is a beautiful and mysterious process, a kind of benevolent amnesia. It's a reminder that the brain is not just a cold, calculating machine. It has a heart. It works to protect us from ourselves, to allow us to move forward, to let go of the things that hold us back. The brain understands that sometimes the only way to truly heal is to forget. It understands that we must clear out the old to make way for the new. It understands that the blank pages of tomorrow are more important than the dog-eared pages of yesterday. We often think of memory as a gift, but forgetting is a gift too. It's the quiet, unseen magic that allows us to find peace. It's the subtle hand that helps us to forgive, to move on, to begin again. So as we lie here in the quiet of the night, let's not fear the things we've forgotten. Instead, let's see them for what they are. The gentle erasures that make our lives a work of art in progress, and not a dusty, stagnant archive. They are the invisible threads that allow the tapestry of our lives to breathe, to shift, and to grow. This journey is just beginning. There is so much more to uncover about this fascinating, quiet process. We will delve into the very architecture of the brain and discover the hidden chambers where memories are first stored. We will see how a simple chemical can be the difference between a memory that stays and one that fades. We will explore the strange and beautiful world of sleep and dreams, and how they play a role in this grand dance of remembering and forgetting. So for now, just relax and let the quiet of the night wash over you. There is no need to remember everything. You are allowed to let go. Last we spoke, we were walking through the quiet halls of memory, learning that our past is not a solid monument, but a living, breathing tapestry. Tonight, our journey takes us deeper into the physical architecture of the mind, to a place where these threads are first gathered. We arrive at a small seahorse-shaped structure nestled deep within the brain's temporal lobe. This is the hippocampus, and its name comes from the Greek word for seahorse, an elegant and fitting description for its curved form. If the brain is a grand theater where our conscious experience unfolds, then the hippocampus is the casting director. Its job is not to hold the entire script, but to evaluate every fleeting scene and decide which ones are worthy of a permanent role in the long-term production. It is a temporary holding zone for new information, a kind of staging area for memories. When you meet a new person, learn a new fact, or have a new experience, the raw data, the sights, the sounds, the feelings, is sent here first. The hippocampus receives this chaotic flood of information and begins the slow, deliberate work of binding it all together into a coherent event. This process is a bit like a student cramming for an exam. The student's mind holds on to all the facts for a short period, just long enough to pass the test. But if those facts are not reviewed, not rehearsed, not put to use, they quickly fade away. This is the very essence of forgetting. The hippocampus has a limited capacity, and if a memory is not deemed important enough to be sent to a more permanent storage location in the cerebral cortex, it will simply be discarded. It will be lost in the noise. This is why you can remember what you ate for dinner last night, but you probably have no memory of what you had for dinner a week ago, last Tuesday. The new information about last night's meal has not yet had time to either be forgotten or to be consolidated for the long haul. But the hippocampus doesn't just decide what to remember. It also decides what to forget. And this brings us to a crucial and often overlooked part of its function. A fascinating and peculiar scientific fact is that the hippocampus is highly active during certain types of daydreaming and mind-wandering. When our minds are not focused on an external task, The hippocampus works to rehearse and reinforce the important memories it has gathered. But it also does something else. It runs simulations, it plays out hypothetical scenarios, and in doing so, it prunes away the bits of those memories that are unnecessary or redundant. It is a quiet, tireless editor, cutting scenes and dialogue that don't advance the plot. It works on the old memories to make them more efficient, more streamlined, and, in a way, more forgettable in their minor details. This raises a deep philosophical question about the nature of consciousness. Is the act of a wandering mind just a waste of time? Or is it a hidden vital part of the memory-making process? Perhaps those moments of daydreaming, when we feel most disconnected from the world, are actually when our brains are most intensely connected to our own internal narrative, quietly deciding which parts of the story get to live on and which parts get to be gently let go. The truth is, we don't really know for sure what the precise function of daydreaming is, but its connection to the hippocampus suggests it's far from a meaningless activity. So, let's imagine this process in the simplest terms. Think of the hippocampus as a receiving station in a vast, bustling city. Every new piece of information arrives there: the daily newspaper, the face of a stranger, the sound of a song on the radio. For a brief time, all of this data is held in a kind of temporary storage. The station manager, the hippocampus, then begins its work. It looks for patterns. It looks for connections. It links the new information about the newspaper headline to an older memory about a similar event. It links the sound of the song to an emotion you felt when you first heard it. If it finds no such connections, if the information is too isolated or too mundane, it simply tosses it away. It lets the raw data fall into the great silent void of unremembered things. This is the neurological basis for a simple principle. We remember what we link to other things. We remember stories, not isolated facts. This is why the great storytellers of old were so powerful. They understood, perhaps intuitively, that if you wanted a memory to stick, you had to wrap it in a story, in an emotion, in a narrative that could be linked to other narratives. You had to give the hippocampus a reason to keep it. This process of memory transfer, from the hippocampus to the cortex, is known as memory consolidation. It's a slow, painstaking process that unfolds over hours, days, and even weeks. It's not a sudden transfer, but a gradual strengthening of neural connections. Think of it like a new path being forged in a dense forest. At first, it's just a faint trail, barely visible. But every time someone walks down it, it becomes a little bit more pronounced. The branches are pushed back, the leaves are trampled down, and the path becomes clearer and clearer. A memory is like this. Every time it is rehearsed, every time it is recalled, the neural pathways associated with it become stronger. The memory becomes more deeply embedded in the grand map of the brain. But if no one walks down the path, if the memory is never recalled, the forest will eventually reclaim it. The branches will grow back, the leaves will pile up, and the path will fade into nothing. This brings us to a strange and beautiful truth about memory. It is an act of creation and preservation, but it is also an act of destruction and loss. For every memory that is carefully consolidated, countless others are lost, forever relegated to the unwritten annals of our personal history. They are the moments of a life that were simply not worth keeping, the idle thoughts and the passing sensations that the mind decided were not important enough to be recorded. We should not mourn these lost moments. We should celebrate them. They are a sign of a healthy, functioning mind, a mind that is not burdened by the useless clutter of 1,000 unremarkable details. They are a sign that our internal curator, the hippocampus, is doing its job quietly and efficiently in the dark. So as you lie there, think of the vast, intricate network inside your head. It is a network of connections, a web of stories, and at its heart lies this small, humble organ working tirelessly to decide what gets to stay and what must be gently let go. It is a quiet, powerful force, a gatekeeper of our past. And tomorrow, it will begin its work all over again, deciding which of today's moments will live on and which will be left to fade a little bit more each day. We have spoken of the hippocampus as the gatekeeper, the casting director that decides which of life's scenes get a chance to be remembered. But what happens after that? What is the next step in this grand, beautiful act of forgetting? It is an act of ruthless efficiency, a process that is as beautiful as it is unsettling. It is known as synaptic pruning, and if the hippocampus is the casting director, then synaptic pruning is the editor, a gardener with a pair of shears, trimming the excess growth to make the garden of the mind more beautiful and more productive. Think of the brain as a vast, dense forest. At birth, it is a thicket of tangled, chaotic growth. There are trillions of connections or synapses between neurons. It's a wilderness of potential, but it is not an efficient wilderness. Information struggles to find a clear path. It is a state of beautiful, overwhelming possibility. But to become a functional, coherent mind, that jungle must be tamed. The brain must find the paths that are most useful and clear them, while allowing the paths that are not used to be reclaimed by the forest. This is the essence of synaptic pruning. It is the process by which our brains eliminate unnecessary and unused synapses. It's a bit like clearing out a closet. We all have that closet, don't we? Filled with clothes we haven't worn in years, books we'll never read, and gadgets we've long since forgotten about. The clutter doesn't just take up space, it makes it impossible to find the things we actually need. The brain's solution is elegant and brutal. It simply gets rid of the clutter. It is a form of forgetting that isn't about the fading of a single memory, but about the fundamental reshaping of the very landscape in which memories exist. This process is most active during childhood and adolescence, a time when the brain is undergoing a massive transformation. The child's mind is a sponge, absorbing everything, making connections left and right. But a key part of development is learning what not to pay attention to. A baby might be able to distinguish between an enormous number of different phonetic sounds in every human language, but as they learn their native tongue, their brains begin to prune away the synapses that were once dedicated to sounds they will never need to make. This is a scientific fact that still mystifies linguists. An adult's ability to learn a foreign language is hindered by the very pruning that made them fluent in their native one. The price of mastery is the forgetting of possibility. This pruning is not a sign of a flawed brain, but of a healthy, adaptive one. A peculiar, almost counterintuitive scientific finding is that adolescents who experience a greater amount of synaptic pruning in certain areas of the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for higher-level thinking and decision-making, actually tend to have better cognitive function and emotional control later in life. It's as if the brain becomes more focused, more efficient, and more powerful by getting rid of what it doesn't need. It's a reminder that strength in the mind is not always about what you acquire, but about what you have the courage to let go of. This raises a quiet, powerful question. If our brains are constantly shaping themselves through the act of forgetting, what does that say about who we are? Are we defined by the connections we have, or by the connections we have lost? Is the person you are today a result of the things you've learned, or the things you've consciously and unconsciously forgotten? It suggests that our identity is not a fixed thing, but an ongoing process of curation, a garden that is always being tended. Let's imagine this process in more detail. When you learn to play a musical instrument, you form new synapses, new pathways. These are the fledgling trails in the forest. If you practice, you are essentially walking those trails over and over, making them wider and more clearly defined. But you're also creating other, less useful trails. The moments of fumbling, the wrong notes, the clumsy fingerings. The brain's gardener comes in, and in the quiet of the night, trims away those less traveled paths. It's an act of forgetting that makes the skill itself more deeply ingrained. You forget the struggle so that the art can flow. This pruning happens on a microscopic level, but its effects are profound. It's the reason why skills we learn in childhood, like riding a bike or swimming, feel so deeply a part of us. It's not just that the memories are strong. It's that the physical structure of our brains has been shaped to accommodate them. The neural pathways are so well worn that we can perform the task without conscious thought. And the detritus of the learning process, all the clumsy mistakes and awkward moments, have been forgotten, not just in our memories, but in the very wiring of our minds. Synaptic pruning is not just about skills, it is about our entire worldview. As we grow, our brains prune away 1,000 possible beliefs and perspectives that are not reinforced by our experiences or our environment. We are born with the capacity to understand a vast array of concepts, but the ones we don't use, the languages we don't speak, the cultures we don't experience, the ideas we don't engage with, are gently but irrevocably pruned away. The result is a mind that is more focused, more specialized, and perhaps a little bit less open to the world than it was when we were very young. This is the beauty and the sorrow of becoming an adult. We gain the power of expertise, but we lose the boundless flexibility of a child. We become masters of our own small garden, but in doing so, we forget the possibility of all the other gardens that could have been. We forget the paths not taken. So, as we continue on our journey, let's hold this image in our minds. A tireless gardener working in the darkness of our unconscious. It is a force that is as much a part of our growth as the seeds we sow and the water we provide. It is the quiet, essential act of letting go of what we do not need, so that the things we do need can truly flourish. This gardener is not an enemy of our past. It is the silent artist that makes our future possible. It is a master of forgetting. We have seen how memory is a woven tapestry, how the hippocampus acts as its gatekeeper, and how synaptic pruning is the patient gardener shaping its form. Tonight, we move from the waking world to a more mysterious realm, a place where the brain continues its work in the quiet darkness. We are entering the domain of sleep, and it is here, in the gentle current of slumber, that some of the most profound acts of both remembering and forgetting take place. For a long time, sleep was seen as a state of inactivity, a mere pause for the body to rest and recharge. But we now know that this couldn't be further from the truth. The sleeping brain is a hive of activity, a vibrant, humming metropolis of neural traffic. This is particularly true during REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, the stage where most of our vivid dreaming occurs. During REM sleep, the brain is nearly as active as it is when we are awake, but it is not a chaotic activity. It is a purpose-driven one. The scientific concept here is called memory consolidation. Remember how we talked about the hippocampus as a temporary holding zone? Well, REM sleep is the night shift, the time when the memories from that temporary holding zone are finally transferred to their permanent home in the cerebral cortex. It's as if the hippocampus takes all the day's experiences, the conversations, the emotions, the lessons learned, and replays them quietly in the dark. It is a dress rehearsal for the memories, a final check before they are sent to their permanent storage. It's during this process that the brain strengthens the neural connections for the memories it deems important. The more you sleep, the more efficient this process becomes. This is a strange and beautiful thing. It means that to truly remember the day's events, you have to first let go and fall asleep. You can't actively decide to consolidate a memory. You can only provide the conditions for your brain to do it for you. This is why a good night's sleep is so crucial for learning, and why pulling an all-nighter to cram for a test is so ineffective. The brain needs the quiet solitude of sleep to do its most important work. But here is where the great mystery and the act of forgetting truly come into play. Dreams are a fascinating, illogical world. We see things that make no sense. We do things that are impossible, and we feel emotions that are often at odds with our waking life. And yet, for all their vividness, most of our dreams are forgotten. We wake up and they are gone, vanished like mist in the morning sun. This is a scientific truth that still perplexes us. The brain is intensely active, creating a rich, complex narrative. And yet, it is a narrative that is almost immediately erased. This raises a fascinating and profound question. Is the purpose of dreaming not to remember, but to forget? What if dreams are the brain's way of testing out different versions of reality, of playing out scenarios that are too chaotic or too emotional to exist in the waking world, and then intentionally discarding them? It's a kind of cognitive spring cleaning. The brain creates a temporary fantasy, a kind of mental sandbox, and then, in the light of day, it brushes it all away. Perhaps this process is a form of selective forgetting. Maybe the brain uses the strange, illogical nature of dreams to detach emotions from memories, to dull the edges of painful experiences. Imagine a dream where you are running from something terrifying. You feel the fear, the panic, the adrenaline. But in the morning, the memory of that fear is gone. All that remains is a vague, almost humorous sense of having had a bad dream. The brain has, in a sense, extracted the emotional core of the experience, processed it, and then discarded the rest. It is a strange, subconscious act of self-care. This is also where we see a peculiar scientific fact at play. Studies have shown that during REM sleep, the parts of the brain responsible for logic and reasoning are less active, while the parts responsible for emotion and visual imagery are highly active. This could be a clue. The brain, it seems, needs to turn down its logical filter to truly process and consolidate memories. It needs to get out of its own way, to let the raw emotional data flow freely. And in that flow, a kind of forgetting takes place, a forgetting of the mundane, the linear, and the predictable in favor of the emotional and the essential. The forgetting of dreams is a reminder that memory is not a simple recording device. It is an active, creative, and highly selective process. The brain is constantly curating, constantly deciding what to keep and what to let go. And in our dreams, in that strange and silent world, it is doing some of its most important work. It is taking the chaotic symphony of the day and turning it into a quiet, coherent melody. It is taking the vast, unedited film of our lives and turning it into a concise, meaningful story. So as you lie there, feeling the soft pull of sleep, remember that your mind is about to begin its night shift. It is about to enter a world where logic gives way to emotion and where memories are both strengthened and, paradoxically, erased. It is about to perform a magic trick, a quiet, beautiful act of forgetting that will make space for the new memories that tomorrow will bring. It is a process of release, a gentle letting go of the things that don't belong, so that the things that do can finally find their way home. Our journey through the quiet halls of forgetting has shown us the hippocampus as a gatekeeper and sleep as a tireless curator. But what about the memories we don't consciously access? The knowledge we possess without a single deliberate act of remembering? Tonight, we turn our attention to the silent echoes of the past, to the part of our memory that operates in the shadows, a form of remembering that is also, paradoxically, a kind of forgetting. This is implicit memory, and it is the memory of skills, habits, and things we know how to do without ever having to think about them. Imagine a musician playing a complicated piece of music. They don't have to consciously remember where to put each finger. The movements flow, a fluid dance of muscle and mind. Or think about riding a bike. You don't recall the specific instructions you were given as a child. You just get on and ride. This is implicit memory at work. It is the ghost in the machine. the knowledge that has become so deeply ingrained in our nervous system that it no longer requires conscious thought. The memory of the skill has been forgotten in a cognitive sense, but it remains a deep current flowing beneath the surface of our awareness. This is fundamentally different from the declarative memories we've been discussing, the memories of facts and events. Implicit memory, also known as procedural memory, is stored in a different part of the brain, primarily in the cerebellum and the basal ganglia. These are the parts of the brain responsible for motor control and habitual behavior. The process of learning a new skill is the process of building new neural pathways in these areas. Forgetting, in this case, is not an erasure. It's a kind of automation. The more we practice a skill, the more the conscious, effortful parts of our brain can forget about it, allowing it to become a silent, seamless part of our being. A fascinating and peculiar scientific fact about implicit memory is its resilience. Individuals who suffer from amnesia, a condition that often destroys declarative memory, can sometimes retain their implicit memories. A patient who cannot remember that they learned a new puzzle just yesterday might still be able to solve it with surprising speed and skill. Their conscious mind has forgotten the event of learning, but their body, their nervous system, remembers the skill. This is a profound example of how forgetting and remembering can coexist in different parts of the same mind. The conscious mind has forgotten, but the unconscious mind remembers. The what is gone, but the how remains. This raises a quiet, powerful philosophical question about the nature of our identity. If our conscious memories are constantly being rewritten, and our implicit memories are the ones that truly persist, then are we defined more by the things we do without thinking than by the stories we tell ourselves about who we are? Is the true you the one who reacts in an instant, the one who can instinctively catch a falling glass, or the one who can recount a story from a decade ago? It suggests that our deepest self may be a silent, unconscious force, a collection of forgotten habits and skills that quietly guide our every move. Consider the simple act of walking. We don't consciously decide to put one foot in front of the other. The act is an implicit memory, a procedural knowledge that was learned in early childhood and has since been forgotten by the conscious mind. But imagine the sheer number of neural pathways, of microscopic instructions, that are involved in that simple act. If we had to consciously process all of that information every time we took a step, we would never get anywhere. The act of forgetting these details is what makes walking possible. This applies not only to physical skills, but to social and emotional ones as well. We learn how to read social cues, how to respond in a conversation, and how to carry ourselves in a room without ever having to think about it. These are a different kind of implicit memory, one that is rooted in social habit and emotional instinct. And like other implicit memories, they are often so deeply ingrained that we can't explain why we do them. We can't remember the moment we learned them. We just do them. This process of automating skills and habits is a kind of gentle forgetting that liberates the conscious mind. It frees up our cognitive resources to deal with new, more complex problems. It allows us to innovate and to grow. The brain is not designed to endlessly relearn the same tasks. It is designed to learn something once, to make it a part of its silent, unconscious self, and then to move on to the next challenge. So as we lie here, in the gentle darkness, think about all the things you do without thinking. The way you sign your name, the way you tie your shoes, the way you navigate the path from your bed to the bathroom in the dark. These are the forgotten echoes of your past, the quiet whispers of your implicit memory. They are a testament to the fact that the mind's greatest work is often done in silence, in the shadows, where the past is not a story to be told, but a power to be wielded. We have journeyed into the hidden depths of the brain, exploring the silent work of implicit memory. Now, let's turn to the memories we believe we know, the stories we tell ourselves about our past. Tonight, We will challenge the very idea of a perfect memory. For the truth is, every time we remember, we are also engaged in a subtle and profound act of creation. We are entering the realm of reconstructive memory, a concept that reveals our recollections are not passive recordings, but active, fluid narratives. For a long time, we thought of memory as a video camera, recording our experiences with perfect fidelity. We believed that when we recalled an event, we were simply replaying the tape. But the work of cognitive psychologists has shown us something far more fascinating and, at times, unsettling. Our memories are not like recordings at all. They are more like a collection of fragments, a feeling, an image, a sound that we piece together each time we remember. The brain, in its effort to create a coherent story, fills in the gaps. It adds details, it smooths out inconsistencies, and sometimes it even invents entire scenes. This is the very essence of reconstructive memory. Each time you remember an event, you don't just recall it, you reconstruct it. You use the fragments you have, but you also use your current state of mind, your present emotions, and your existing knowledge to build the story anew. This is why our memories can be so malleable. It is why our recollection of a past event can change over time. And it is why we can be so certain about a memory that is, in fact, not entirely accurate. A truly peculiar scientific fact that illustrates this is the work of psychologist Elizabeth Loftus. In her groundbreaking research, she showed people a video of a car accident. She then asked them a series of questions about what they saw. When she used the word smashed to describe the cars colliding, people reported seeing broken glass more often than when she used the word hit. The single word smashed was enough to subtly alter their memory, to make them remember something that was never there. This is a powerful demonstration of how easily our memories can be influenced and how our brains will readily invent details to fit a narrative. This leads us to a crucial and perhaps unnerving question. If our memories are not perfect recordings, but rather ongoing reconstructions, then is it even possible to truly know the past? Or is the past a fluid, ever-changing story that is defined not by what happened, but by what we choose to remember and how we choose to tell it? The truth is, we don't really know for sure. The very foundation of our personal history is built on a shifting ground. This creative aspect of memory is not a flaw. It is a necessary part of our mental landscape. Our brains are not designed to be archives of every minute detail of our lives. They are designed to create meaning. They are designed to build a story that helps us navigate the present and prepare for the future. And sometimes, to create a coherent and useful story, the brain has to forget the parts that don't fit. It has to smooth over the contradictions and fill in the blanks. Think about a memory from your childhood. You can probably conjure a vivid image, a birthday party, a holiday, a day at the beach. But can you remember the exact words that were spoken? Can you recall the expression on every person's face? Most likely, you can't. What you have is a collection of highlights, a series of snapshots that your brain has woven into a cohesive narrative. The parts that are missing, the awkward silences, the mundane conversations, the fleeting moments of boredom, are the parts that your brain has wisely forgotten. They have been edited out to make the story more compelling, more meaningful. This is a benevolent act of forgetting. The brain is not trying to deceive us. It is trying to help us. It is helping us to build a self, a personal history that is not a chaotic jumble of random facts, but a purposeful, forward-looking narrative. The forgetting of certain details is what allows the story to have a point. This also explains the phenomenon of false memories, where we can be convinced that we remember an event that never happened. These are not a sign of a broken mind, but a powerful example of how our brains, in their relentless pursuit of a coherent narrative, can create something from nothing. They can take a suggestion, a story we've been told, or a photograph we've seen and weave it into the fabric of our personal past. It is a stunning and at times terrifying example of the mind's creative power. So as you lie here thinking about the past, don't imagine a dusty film reel being played back in your mind. Instead, imagine a team of artists, a group of quiet, tireless storytellers working to piece together a new painting every single time you recall a memory. The colors might be a little different. The shadows might fall in a new way, and the details might have been altered. But the essence of the image, the feeling, the emotion, the core of the story is still there. It has just been polished and refined by the beautiful and sometimes deceptive act of forgetting. We have seen how memory is a reconstructive art, a tapestry woven anew with each recall. But what is the thread that holds these fragments together? What is the anchor that keeps a memory from completely drifting away? Tonight, we will find that anchor in the most powerful and primitive of our senses, emotion. We are exploring how our most vivid memories are not held by facts, but by feelings. We are talking about emotional memories and the peculiar way they resist the gentle tide of forgetting. Imagine a moment from your past that is so sharp, so clear, it feels like it just happened yesterday. It could be the memory of a first kiss, a moment of profound sadness, or the joy of a major achievement. The details of the event may be hazy, but the feeling, the rush of adrenaline, the flush of embarrassment, the quiet sense of relief, is still as potent as ever. This is because emotional memories are not stored in the same way as neutral memories. They have a kind of built-in permanence, a durability that bypasses the usual processes of forgetting. The science behind this is rooted in the brain's emotional center, the amygdala. This small almond-shaped structure is the brain's alarm system. When we experience an emotionally charged event, the amygdala lights up, and it sends a signal to the hippocampus, essentially saying, "Pay attention, this is important." This signal is often accompanied by the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, which act as a kind of chemical marker, a highlight in the grand notebook of the brain. These hormones help to strengthen the memory and make it more resistant to decay. This is a beautiful and curious mechanism. The brain understands, on a primitive level, that emotionally significant events are worth keeping. A scientific fact that shows this is the phenomenon of flashbulb memories. These are memories of emotionally shocking public events, like the September 11th attacks or the Challenger space shuttle disaster. People can often recall the exact details of where they were, who they were with, and what they were doing when they heard the news. They can remember the trivial details, the color of the shirt they were wearing, the song on the radio, with a clarity that seems impossible. And yet, studies have shown that even these memories, so vivid and so real, are not immune to the reconstructive nature of memory. The factual details can be subtly altered over time, but the emotional core remains as a kind of silent, unyielding witness. This raises a fascinating and deeply personal question. If the emotional content of a memory is more durable than the facts, then is the feeling itself the true memory? Are we not so much remembering what happened, but remembering how we felt when it happened? It suggests that our personal history is not a collection of events, but a mosaic of emotions, and that our feelings are the quiet, powerful threads that hold the entire structure together. Let's think about this from the perspective of forgetting. While the emotional core of a memory is strengthened, the brain, in its quiet wisdom, will often forget the details that led to that emotion. Imagine a moment of intense anger. You might not be able to recall the exact words that were exchanged, the specific actions that were taken, or the precise look on a person's face, but you can still feel the heat of the anger, the tightness in your chest, the sense of betrayal. The brain has, in a sense, stripped away the unnecessary details and left only the pure, raw emotion. It's a kind of efficient forgetting, a way of allowing us to learn the emotional lesson without being burdened by the minutiae. This is a form of self-preservation. The brain understands that holding on to every detail of a traumatic or painful event can be crippling. It understands that to heal, we must, to a certain extent, forget the specific pain and remember only the emotional truth of the experience. It allows us to move on, to learn, and to grow without being haunted by a flawless and therefore terrifying recollection. But there is a darker side to this as well. What about the things we want to forget? The painful emotional memories that cling to us and refuse to let go. Sometimes, the very system that is designed to help us remember important things also holds on to the things we wish would fade away. This is where the mystery remains. Physicists wonder if a black hole truly forgets the information it consumes, and we, too, must wonder if the brain ever truly forgets an emotional scar. The truth is, we don't really know for sure why some emotional memories fade and others remain. But it is clear that their staying power is in a category all their own. So as we lie here in the quiet of the night, think of your memories not as a dusty photo album, but as a collection of glowing embers. Some of them are just faint sparks, barely visible, but a few of them, the ones that were touched by the fire of emotion, are still burning bright, illuminating the path behind you. They are the silent, powerful proof that the heart remembers what the mind forgets. We have spoken of the hippocampus as the gatekeeper, of sleep as a curator, and of emotion as an anchor. But what happens when the very mechanism of remembering fails? Tonight, our journey takes a more sober turn as we explore the nature of forgetting through its most profound and unsettling manifestation, amnesia. By understanding what happens when we lose our memory, we can gain a deeper insight into how we remember, and perhaps more importantly, how we forget. Amnesia is not a single condition, but a spectrum of memory loss, often caused by brain injury, disease, or psychological trauma. There are two primary types of amnesia, each revealing a different facet of how memory is stored and retrieved. The first is anterograde amnesia, the inability to form new memories. If the hippocampus is the casting director, anterograde amnesia is the condition where that director is no longer on the job. The patient lives in a kind of perpetual present, unable to hold on to new experiences for more than a few moments. A classic case study in neuroscience is the patient known as HM, a man who, after a brain surgery that removed his hippocampus, could no longer form new declarative memories. He could not remember a new person he met a minute ago or a conversation he just had. And yet, here is a fascinating and peculiar scientific fact. HM could still learn new implicit memories. He could get better at a puzzle or a skill, even though he had no conscious memory of ever having done it before. This shows us that the process of learning a skill, the how-to knowledge, is separate from the process of remembering an event, the what happened knowledge. Forgetting, in the case of anterograde amnesia, is an extreme form of a process we all experience. It is the failure of a new memory to move from the temporary storage of the hippocampus to the permanent storage of the cerebral cortex. It is the ultimate expression of the unconsolidated memory, the moment that never makes it into the story of our lives. The second type is retrograde amnesia, the loss of memories from the past. This is the more common and often more dramatic form portrayed in movies. It is the condition where an entire chapter or even an entire book of one's life is simply gone. This kind of forgetting can be patchy. A patient might forget a few years leading up to an accident, but remember their childhood with perfect clarity. This is because long-term memories are not stored in one place. They are distributed throughout the cerebral cortex. A brain injury might damage one area, leading to the forgetting of memories from a specific period, while leaving memories stored in other parts of the brain completely intact. This reinforces the idea that forgetting is not just a single simple act, but a complex process of decay, misretrieval, and in some cases, physical damage. This raises a quiet, powerful, and deeply unsettling philosophical question. If your memories are who you are, what happens when they are gone? If your past is a fluid story, what happens when the pages are simply blank? Does the person still exist? Does an amnesiac patient lose their identity? Or do they simply lose the narrative they used to tell themselves? The truth is, we don't know for sure. It suggests that identity is not just a collection of memories, but also a collection of skills, habits, and an ineffable sense of self that can sometimes survive even the most catastrophic loss of memory. The very existence of amnesia reveals a profound truth about forgetting. It is not just a passive process of a memory fading away. It is an active and sometimes destructive process. It is a reminder that the physical and chemical structures of our brains are the very foundation of our existence. Without them, we are untethered, floating in a sea of unknown moments, a world without a past. But there is a strange kind of beauty in this as well. Amnesia, in a sense, is the ultimate form of a fresh start. A patient with anterograde amnesia can be happy and joyful for a moment, and their sadness or anger from a moment before is completely forgotten. It's a kind of radical forced forgiveness. The brain has, in its own way, provided a kind of peace, a kind of release from the burdens of the past. It is a terrifying, but also poignant example of how forgetting can be a form of freedom. So as you lie here, safe in the knowledge of your own past, consider the quiet miracle of it. The fact that you can remember what you had for breakfast this morning, or the name of your first teacher, or the color of your childhood home. These are not just random facts. They are the anchors that hold you to your life. They are the beautiful, fragile proof that your brain is working quietly, tirelessly, to keep the story of you together. And in those moments where you forget a name or a detail, don't despair. See it as a small, gentle reminder that your mind is a living, breathing thing, and that forgetting is not a sign of a flaw, but a sign of life. Our journey through the quiet halls of forgetting has so far been a deeply personal one, focused on the inner workings of a single mind. But what happens when we zoom out, when we realize that our memories are not just our own? Tonight, we explore the vast, invisible web that connects us all, the collective stories and shared histories that shape who we are. We are entering the domain of collective memory, and it is here that we find a kind of forgetting that is both social and deeply personal. Collective memory is the shared pool of knowledge and information in a social group. It is the history we tell ourselves, the stories we pass down, the cultural norms we inherit. It is the reason why a person from one country might feel a sense of pride or sorrow for an event that happened long before they were born, or why two siblings might remember a shared childhood event in a wildly different way. Their personal memories are being constantly shaped and reshaped by the collective narrative of their family. Think of it this way. If your personal memory is a single library, then collective memory is the grand library of an entire city. It contains all the books, all the documents, all the oral histories. And while you might only ever read a few of those books, your understanding of the world is still profoundly shaped by the very existence of that library. The stories that are told, the heroes that are celebrated, the moments that are commemorated, these are the parts of the collective memory that are remembered. But what about the stories that are never told? The heroes that are forgotten? The moments that are erased? This is the process of collective forgetting. A fascinating and peculiar scientific fact is that the rise of social media and the internet has created a new and, in some ways, unprecedented form of collective memory. We are now all contributing to a vast digital archive of shared experiences. But what happens when a story or a detail or an entire event is removed from that archive? We see this happening all the time. in the form of a deleted tweet, a lost forum, or a broken link. This raises a quiet, powerful question. In an age of infinite digital storage, can we truly forget anything? And if the collective remembers everything, does that make it harder for us, as individuals, to let go? The truth is, we don't know for sure. But the existence of this digital collective memory reveals a profound truth about forgetting. It is an active process, and it is often a political one. What a society chooses to remember and what it chooses to forget says a great deal about its values and its identity. A nation might choose to forget a period of conflict or a moment of shame. A family might choose to forget a difficult chapter in its history. This is not a passive act of decay. It is an active process of curating a narrative, of shaping a story that is more comfortable, more cohesive, or more palatable. This brings us to the profound link between personal and collective forgetting. Our individual memories are not formed in a vacuum. They are constantly being influenced by the narratives we are exposed to. If the collective story of a family is that a certain event never happened, a child might subconsciously forget their personal memory of that event to fit in with the collective narrative. This is a form of self-preservation, a kind of social conformity that reveals the deep, symbiotic relationship between the personal and the social. This is not a malicious process. It is a necessary one. A society, like an individual, needs to forget certain things in order to move forward. It needs to let go of old grudges, to forget old battles, to make space for a new and different future. Without this process of collective forgetting, we would be forever trapped in the past, unable to grow, unable to change. So as you lie here, remember that your memories are not just your own. They are a part of a much larger story, a story that is being written and rewritten every day by millions of people. And in that grand ongoing narrative, a great deal is remembered and a great deal is forgotten. It is a quiet, ongoing dance between the past and the future, and we are all participants in it. And tonight, as you drift off to sleep, perhaps you can feel the faint, ancient hum of that grand library, the whisper of all the stories that have been told, and all the stories that have been gently, irrevocably forgotten. Our journey through the landscape of memory has revealed that it is not a perfect record, but a fluid, ever-changing narrative. We have seen how our personal history is shaped by both the internal workings of the mind and the external pressures of our social world. But there is one more, often invisible thread that holds a memory together: the very environment in which it was formed. Tonight, we explore the quiet, powerful force of context and how the absence of a simple cue can lead to a profound act of forgetting. Think about a time you walked into a room and suddenly forgot why you were there. The memory, a perfectly good memory, seemed to vanish into thin air. You might have to walk back to the room you came from, and in that original space, the memory returns with a jolt. This is not a sign of a failing mind. It is a perfect example of context-dependent memory. Our brains don't just store information, they store information in a rich, tangled web of associations. A memory is linked to the sights, the sounds, the smells, and the feelings of the moment in which it was formed. When we try to retrieve that memory in a different context, the brain lacks the necessary cues, the little trail markers that lead it to the right place. The scientific concept here is called encoding specificity principle. It states that the more similar the retrieval cues are to the cues that were present during the initial learning, the more likely you are to remember. This is a scientific fact that has been proven time and again in psychological experiments. In a classic study, divers were asked to learn a list of words either on land or underwater. When they were asked to recall the words, those who recalled them in the same environment where they learned them performed significantly better. The very feel of the water, the sound of the bubbles, and the sight of the marine life were all subtle cues that helped them access the memories. This raises a fascinating and deeply personal question. If our memories are so tied to context, then when we move to a new city, or when we change jobs, or when we end a relationship, are we not just forgetting the old place, but also forgetting a part of ourselves? It suggests that our personal history is not just inside our heads. It is also in the world around us. It is in the layout of our old bedroom, in the smell of our childhood neighborhood, in the feel of the bench where we used to sit and talk. And when those cues are gone, the memories that were tied to them can become harder to access, more distant, and more prone to being forgotten. This is a kind of gentle, almost poetic forgetting. It is not an active erasure, but a passive decay. The memory is still there somewhere, but without the right key, the right context, we can't unlock it. It's a bit like a book in a library that has been filed incorrectly. The book still exists, but we can't find it. The memory is still a part of our personal history, but it is no longer a part of our lived, conscious experience. This explains why people with Alzheimer's disease often seem to come back for a moment when they are taken to a familiar place from their past, like their childhood home or a favorite park. The physical surroundings, the smells, and the sounds can sometimes unlock a part of the mind that was long thought to be gone. The memory wasn't completely destroyed. It was just a key away waiting in the shadows. This is a beautiful and quiet mystery. We are so used to thinking of memory as an internal process that we forget its deep connection to the external world. We forget that our past is not just inside our heads. It is also a part of the air we breathe and the ground we walk on. It is a shared, ongoing conversation between our minds and the world we live in. So as you lie here, safe in your own space, take a moment to notice the quiet cues around you. The way the moonlight falls on the wall, the faint hum of a refrigerator, the gentle weight of your blanket. These are the details that are being woven into the fabric of tonight's memory. And someday, when you are in a different place, a different time, the simple feel of your blanket or the sound of a refrigerator might just be the very thing that helps you remember this quiet, peaceful moment. It is a reminder that forgetting is not just about a memory fading away. It is also about the subtle, beautiful way that our past is forever tied to the world that held it. We have explored the intricate relationship between our minds and the world, understanding how the environment holds the keys to our memories. But what about the memories that seem to be completely gone, vanished without a trace, only to reappear later without warning? Tonight, we step into the shadows of the past, to a place where forgetting is not an act of decay, but an act of suppression. We are talking about the fascinating, and at times frightening, topic of forgotten memories that resurface unexpectedly, and the neurological mechanisms behind them. Think of a time you were trying to remember something, a name, a word, a fact, and it just wouldn't come to you, no matter how hard you tried. You gave up, went on with your day, and then, in the quiet of a different moment, the word just popped into your head, seemingly out of nowhere. This is a common and often humorous example of a suppressed memory. But what about the deeper, more profound memories? The memories of a childhood event, a traumatic experience, or a person you thought you had long forgotten. These are the ghosts in the machine, the memories that have been deliberately, or sometimes unconsciously, pushed out of our conscious awareness. The scientific concept here is called repression, a psychological term for the mind's unconscious act of excluding painful or unacceptable thoughts and memories from awareness. While the existence and exact nature of repression are still debated in the scientific community, what is clear is that the brain has a mechanism for suppressing information. Neuroscientists have discovered that the act of actively trying not to remember something can be a powerful form of forgetting. The more we try to push a memory away, the stronger the suppression becomes. The brain, in its quiet wisdom, recognizes that certain memories are too painful or too traumatic to be dealt with, and it simply puts them in a kind of mental lockbox. This is a beautiful and strange paradox. The act of trying to forget is, in a way, an act of remembering. But it is a remembering that is turned inward, a kind of negative space, a silent, ongoing struggle in the dark. The more we fight a memory, the more we reinforce the neurological pathways of its suppression. The memory itself isn't gone. It is just being held hostage by a different part of the mind. This raises a quiet, powerful, and deeply personal question. Are we in control of what we remember and what we forget? Or is the brain a kind of silent, protective force, making decisions for us without our knowledge? It suggests that our conscious mind is not the final authority on our personal history. It is just the front door, and there are many hidden rooms and secret passages behind it. The truth is, we don't know for sure what the precise function of repression is, but its existence suggests a mind that is far more complex and far more protective than we ever imagined. A peculiar scientific fact that illustrates this is the work on directed forgetting. In these studies, subjects are given a list of words to memorize. They are then told to forget some of the words and remember others. When later tested, the subjects are significantly worse at recalling the words they were told to forget. The very instruction to forget was enough to actively suppress the memory. This shows that forgetting is not always a passive act of decay. It can be an active, willed process, a kind of mental command. This is a form of self-preservation. The brain understands that a memory can be a burden. It can be a source of pain, a source of anxiety, and a source of regret. And sometimes, the only way to move on, to heal, is to put that memory away, to lock it in a dark room and throw away the key. This is a kind of benevolent amnesia, a quiet, protective force that allows us to find peace in a world that can be difficult and painful. So as you lie here, remember that your mind is not just a collection of memories. It is also a collection of forgotten things, a museum of silent stories that you may or may not ever visit again. And in that vast, intricate space, there is a kind of quiet strength, a kind of quiet wisdom. It is the wisdom of knowing that some things are best left in the shadows. It is the courage to let go, even when you don't know that you're doing it. And it is a reminder that the ghosts of our past are not always gone. Sometimes they are just waiting in a quiet, forgotten room for a moment when we are finally ready to see them again. Our journey into the mind has shown us that forgetting is not just a passive process of decay, but an active, and at times deliberate, one. We have seen how the mind actively suppresses certain memories and how the world around us holds the keys to others. But what if forgetting is not just a psychological or neurological phenomenon? What if it is a fundamental principle of the universe itself? Tonight, we step out of the brain and into the cosmos to explore the connection between our personal act of forgetting and the grand, inescapable law of entropy. Entropy is a core concept in thermodynamics, and it is most simply defined as the measure of disorder or randomness in a system. The second law of thermodynamics states that the total entropy of an isolated system can only increase over time. In a practical sense, this means that things naturally fall apart. A sandcastle will be washed away by the tide. A hot cup of coffee will cool down to match the temperature of the room. A perfectly organized deck of cards will, with enough shuffling, become chaotic and random. Order, it seems, is an uphill battle, while disorder is the natural, inevitable state of things. But what does this have to do with memory? A memory, in its essence, is a state of order. It is a specific pattern of neural connections, a precise arrangement of information. Forgetting, then, is a kind of entropy in the brain. It is the natural tendency of that specific arrangement to fall into disorder, to lose its structure, to become more random and less defined. The once vivid details of a memory are like the grains of sand in a sandcastle. Over time, they are worn away, dispersed, and lost to the surrounding chaos. This is a powerful and poetic metaphor for forgetting. It suggests that our memories are not meant to last forever. They are not permanent monuments. They are temporary structures in a universe that is always, inevitably, tending towards disorder. The act of remembering, then, is a brief, beautiful act of defiance against the natural order of things. It is the momentary reestablishment of a specific pattern, a flicker of order in a sea of chaos. This raises a fascinating and deeply philosophical question. Is forgetting a flaw of the human condition? Or is it a sign that we are a part of something much larger? Is our personal act of letting go just a small echo of the universe's grand, ongoing process of dissolution? The truth is, we don't know for sure. But the parallel is a beautiful and humbling one. It suggests that the same forces that cause a star to fade and a galaxy to disperse are the same forces that cause us to forget a name, a date, or a moment from the past. We are, in our own small way, a part of the cosmic dance of entropy. A peculiar scientific fact that illustrates this is the concept of information entropy in physics and computer science. When a system is at its lowest state of energy, it is in its highest state of entropy. The information it contains is no longer structured or useful. It has been lost to the randomness of the system. This is a perfect description of a memory that has been completely forgotten. The information is still there, in a sense, in the atoms and molecules of the brain, but it is no longer in a structured, accessible form. It has been lost to the chaos. This is a kind of gentle, almost comforting way of looking at forgetting. It is not a failure of the mind. It is a fundamental truth of existence. We are not meant to hold on to everything. We are not meant to be a perfect, unchanging record of our past. We are meant to be a part of the flow of the universe, and that flow is always, inevitably, moving towards a state of greater disorder. So as you lie here, remember that your personal act of forgetting is a beautiful and quiet part of a much larger story. It is a sign that you are a part of the same grand, ongoing process that is shaping the stars and the galaxies. It is a reminder that we are all, in our own way, a part of the universe's great, gentle, and inevitable surrender to chaos. And in that surrender, there is a kind of peace, a kind of freedom, a kind of beautiful, quiet release. We have explored the grand, cosmic forces of entropy that play a role in our forgetting, but now, let's return to the more intimate and personal. Tonight, we will talk about the secret language of the senses and how a simple smell or a sound can unlock a memory that we thought was long gone. We are exploring how our senses can act as a silent and powerful trigger, bypassing the conscious mind and leading us directly to the heart of the past. Think of a time you were walking down the street and caught a faint scent that instantly transported you back to a specific moment in your childhood. Perhaps it was the smell of cut grass that reminded you of summer afternoons, or the scent of a certain kind of soap that took you back to your grandmother's house. You didn't consciously try to remember. The memory just came unbidden, like a ghost in the machine. This is a profound and peculiar experience, and it is a testament to the powerful connection between our senses and our memory. The science behind this is fascinating. Of all our senses, the sense of smell has the most direct and unfiltered connection to the brain's emotional and memory centers. The nerve that carries information about smells, the olfactory nerve, is located just behind the nose. It sends its signals directly to the olfactory bulb, which is a part of the brain that is directly connected to the amygdala and the hippocampus, the very structures we have been discussing as the heart of our emotional and declarative memories. Other senses, like sight and sound, have to go through a more complex route, being processed in other parts of the brain before they reach the emotional and memory centers. The pathway for smell is a direct, two-way street. This is a peculiar scientific fact that still mystifies us. The unique neurological pathway of smell means that a scent can act as a powerful memory trigger, bypassing our logical and conscious mind. It can unlock a memory that we thought was completely forgotten. It is a kind of silent language, a nonverbal communication between our senses and our deepest, most buried memories. A smell can bring back not just a fact or a detail, but an entire feeling, a complete emotional landscape. It is the purest and most direct form of remembering. This raises a quiet, powerful, and deeply personal question. If our senses can unlock memories that our conscious mind can't, then what does that say about our control over our own past? Are we not the sole authors of our personal history? Are there parts of our story that are only accessible through a certain smell, a certain sound, or a certain touch? It suggests that our memories are not just inside our heads. They are also a part of the world, waiting to be unlocked by the right sensory cue. This is a beautiful kind of forgetting. The memory is not gone. It is just in a different room, a room with a lock that can only be opened by a specific key. The key might be the scent of a specific flower, the sound of a certain song, or the feel of a particular texture. When we encounter that key, the door swings open, and the memory, in all its vividness, comes flooding back. It is a reminder that the past is never truly lost. It is just waiting in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to emerge. This is a form of passive remembering, a kind of beautiful involuntary act. We don't have to try. We don't have to strain. The memory just comes on its own terms in its own time. And in those moments, we are reminded of the rich, intricate, and often mysterious connection between our inner world and the outer world. So as you lie here, safe in your own space, take a moment to notice the quiet language of your senses, the faint scent of the air, the distant sound of a car, the gentle touch of your blanket on your skin. These are the details that are being woven into the fabric of tonight's memory. And someday, in a different place, in a different time, one of these quiet, simple cues might just be the very thing that brings you back to this moment, to this quiet, peaceful night. It is a reminder that the past is not just a story we tell ourselves. It is also a song we hear, a smell we sense, and a feeling we touch. It is a kind of beautiful sensory forgetting and a beautiful sensory remembering. We have seen how our minds forget through a process of decay, of suppression, and of cosmic entropy. But tonight, we will consider the most profound and perhaps most courageous form of forgetting, the kind that is an active choice, a benevolent act of self-preservation. We are talking about the art of selective forgetting and how our minds actively suppress painful or traumatic memories as a way to protect ourselves and allow us to heal. Life, in its beautiful and brutal complexity, is filled with moments of pain, of loss, and of trauma. A child who is exposed to a difficult experience, a soldier who witnesses the horrors of war, or a person who goes through a period of deep grief. These are all moments that have the potential to cripple a person, to hold them hostage in a perpetual state of pain. But in many cases, a remarkable thing happens. The mind, in its quiet wisdom, steps in and begins the slow, deliberate work of forgetting. The science behind this is rooted in the brain's ability to compartmentalize and to suppress. We have already spoken of repression, the unconscious act of pushing away a memory. But there is also a more conscious, and often more powerful, form of selective forgetting. Neuroscientists have discovered that the very act of trying to suppress a memory can, over time, weaken the neural pathways associated with it. The more we choose not to think about something, the more the brain begins to see that memory as something that is not useful, not necessary, and not something that should be easily accessible. It is a kind of gentle and sometimes forceful editing of our own personal history. This is a profound and mysterious process. It is a kind of brain-wide therapy, a silent internal work that is designed to help us heal. The brain understands on a primitive and powerful level that some memories are too heavy to carry. It understands that to move forward, we must, to a certain extent, let go of the pain of the past. It is a kind of graceful surrender, a kind of benevolent amnesia that allows us to find peace. This raises a quiet, powerful, and deeply personal question. Are we not just the sum of our experiences, but also the sum of the experiences we have chosen to forget? Is the person we are today not just a result of the things that have happened to us, but also a result of the things we have learned to let go of? It suggests that true strength is not always about what you can endure, but about what you can release. A peculiar scientific fact that illustrates this is the work on memory inhibition. Researchers have found that when people are trained to forget a certain category of words, they become better at it over time. The brain, it seems, can learn to inhibit the retrieval of certain memories, to actively block the neural pathways that lead to them. It is a kind of mental muscle, a quiet, powerful force that can be trained and strengthened. This shows that the act of forgetting is not just a passive process of decay. It is an active and, at times, a learned skill. This is a kind of beautiful, intentional forgetting. It is not about pretending that something didn't happen. It is about taking the memory, acknowledging its existence, and then, with quiet grace, putting it away in a part of the mind that is not so easily accessible. It is a form of self-care, a kind of emotional curation that allows us to protect ourselves from the things that might otherwise destroy us. So as you lie here, remember that your mind is not just a passive receptacle for all of life's experiences. It is an active participant in your healing. It is a quiet, powerful force that is constantly working to help you let go of the things that are holding you back. And in those moments where you find yourself forgetting a painful memory, don't see it as a sign of weakness. See it as a sign of strength. See it as a beautiful, quiet, and courageous act of self-preservation. It is the silent art of selective forgetting, and it is a masterpiece. We have traveled a great distance together, from the very architecture of the brain to the grand, cosmic dance of entropy. We have seen how memory is not a solid monument, but a living, breathing tapestry that is constantly being woven and unwoven, a story that is always being told and retold. And in every one of these acts, we have seen the quiet, gentle, and necessary hand of forgetting. Tonight, we arrive at our final destination, a quiet, philosophical reflection on the purpose of it all. We are talking about the unwritten page, awaiting dawn. The ancient philosophers saw memory as a gift from the gods, a way for us to hold on to our past and to learn from our mistakes. But what if forgetting is the greater gift? What if the ability to let go, to release, to surrender, is what makes life not just bearable, but beautiful? What if forgetting is not a bug in the system, but the very feature that allows us to find peace, to heal, and to begin again? Think of a blank page. It is a state of potential, a canvas awaiting a new masterpiece. If that page were already filled with every single word you have ever written, every single thought you have ever had, there would be no room for a new story. The page would be cluttered, chaotic, and utterly useless. Forgetting is the act of erasing that page. It is the quiet, powerful force that makes room for a new day. It allows us to wake up with a clean slate, with a new mind, with a new heart. This is not a flaw of the human condition. It is its greatest strength. A mind that could remember everything would be a mind trapped in the past. It would be a mind that could not move on from its mistakes, that could not forgive, that could not grow. It would be a mind that is so burdened by its history that it would lose the ability to live in the present. The truth is, forgetting is what makes us human. It is the quiet, compassionate act that allows us to find peace after a painful experience. It is the silent, benevolent force that helps us to forgive. It is the unwritten page that gives us the freedom to create a new story for ourselves every single day. This brings us to a quiet, powerful, and deeply personal question. What do you want to forget? What stories are you holding on to that are holding you back? What moments from your past are a weight on your heart? Perhaps tonight, you can give yourself permission to let them go. Not to erase them entirely, but to put them in a quiet, forgotten room in your mind where they can no longer hold you hostage. To allow yourself to be free, to be light, to be ready for the new stories that tomorrow will bring. And so we have come to the end of our journey. We have seen how our memories are not a perfect record, but a living, breathing, and ever-changing narrative. We have seen how forgetting is not a flaw, but a fundamental, necessary, and beautiful part of who we are. It is the silent, ongoing work that allows us to find peace in the past, to live fully in the present, and to create a new future for ourselves every single day. The sound of my voice now will gently brush past your awareness, like a soft breeze through a field of wheat. The concepts we explored tonight, the woven tapestry of memory, the quiet work of the hippocampus, the benevolent hand of entropy, will slowly fade into the background, becoming a soft and gentle whisper. Your consciousness will begin to drift, to surrender to the quiet and the dark. The words are no longer important. The ideas are no longer important. All that remains is the soft, rhythmic sound of your own breath, the quiet hum of the night, and the gentle pull of sleep. I'd like to gently ask one last time, where is the place you're staying now? The time in that place, at this very moment, how is it flowing? Feel the quiet of your room. Feel the gentle weight of your blanket. There is nothing left to do now but to rest. Do not worry about a thing. Your mind is safe. Your memories, the ones you need, are safe. And the ones you do not are being gently, quietly, and beautifully forgotten. Sleep well, my companion. Wherever and whenever you are, may the unwritten pages of tomorrow be filled with sweet dreams